This is Lily Axelrod, attorney at Axelrod Immigration Law. And today I'm going to answer the question of what does an attorney do at an interview with immigration, an interview at the local U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Office. And what I often tell my clients when we're preparing for an interview is that if everything goes totally smoothly, you'll wonder why I was there at all, because I was just sitting next to you and taking notes during the interview and didn't say or do much actively. But my role in the interview can be several different things depending on how the interview is going and the history of your case. I am an advocate for you to ensure that you are being treated fairly. Most USCIS officers are very reasonable and respectful most of the time, but I have heard, of course, a number of stories of officers asking inappropriate questions or being belligerent or completely misunderstanding the case or being rude to applicants. That's not acceptable. Usually just having an attorney in the room is enough to avoid that kind of thing. But if there's ever a moment in the interview where the officer is being disrespectful or is insisting on a misunderstanding of the law or the facts, I can address that directly with them politely, respectfully. And if that's not enough to solve the issue, I can pause the interview and ask for a supervisor who can come in and talk it out and ensure that the interview goes back on track, or even that it's reassigned to a different officer. I also often serve as a facilitator. So while I can't directly testify for you at your interview, I can give explanations about any legal issues that come up. Officers often appreciate when an attorney is able to point them exactly to what the legal issue is in your case, the regulation or the case law that tells them what to do about it and why you're eligible. And especially if they haven't had time to review your file in depth before the interview, or if your case is complex or has an issue they're not familiar with, having an attorney in the room to walk them through that can be helpful. Also, to be able to walk them through your evidence. Again, sometimes the officer has had an hour to review your file in depth. Sometimes somebody handed it to them 5 minutes before your interview and said, your colleague is out sick, here, take this interview today. So I'm often able to point them toward what evidence they are looking for. For example, if they're looking to understand what happened with a criminal case, I can point them, here's the docket sheet, here is where it says that the case was dismissed and what date. So this role is especially important if the case has a complex history. For example, if you've ever had problems with immigration before at the border or in immigration court, or had an application denied, or if you've got any criminal history. I can also serve as a witness at the interview. So I'm taking detailed notes the whole time, which usually I don't need to pull back up again at all after the interview. But if there's ever any question about what was said, what was asked, and what was answered, this can be especially helpful if you're in a marriage-based interview and you and your spouse are interviewed separately. The officer is looking to see if your answers match. And so having an independent record of what the officer asked and what each of your answers were can help to ensure that the officer both has the right facts about who said what, and to be a check against if there's any request for follow-up. I can make sure that what they say happened is actually accurate. Sometimes in an interview, an officer will ask an applicant to sign a sworn statement or to confirm that certain edits were made to their application based on what they said in the interview. So I always review that, any changes and any statements before my client signs, to make sure that it is in their interest to sign, or if we have any edits or additions, to make sure that your rights are protected and that immigration has the information they need to approve your application. So those are my main roles at the interview, as a facilitator and an advocate and a witness. There are a couple of things that an attorney cannot do at the interview. An attorney can't testify for you, meaning can't answer a factual question that the interviewer asks you. So if they say, what was your last address? I can't look up on the form and say, oh, officer, it was such and such. You have to either give that answer or say, I don't know, or I don't remember. Sometimes the officer will then look to the attorney and allow the attorney to give factual information, but only with the officer's permission. They want you to answer questions first. I can't take an English or civics test for you, of course, for a citizenship interview. I do take very careful notes of what questions are asked and what is said to make sure that they score your citizenship exam correctly and generously, but I can't, of course, give you any answers. I also can't serve as an interpreter. So though I do speak Spanish, I cannot interpret for you at the interview. The attorney cannot also be the interpreter at the same time. That's a rule that they have for good reason. So for Spanish speakers, I have professional bilingual members of my staff who can serve as interpreters either in person or remotely on the phone, depending on what kind of interview it is and where. For other languages, I'll give you guidelines about what you need from your interpreter, what they need to be able to do, and how their role works. But I cannot do that for you. So that is a summary of what the attorney's role is at your USCIS interview. If you have any questions, if you're a current client, you can contact me through your My Case portal, or you're always welcome to email me at lily@axelrodlaw.com. Thanks for watching.